You don't want to save this. And then we'll be live soon. So I'm gonna actually turn off my camera until we're ready.
Okay.
Oh my goodness.
Can we turn on the waiting room inside the meeting?
Yes, I would like you to. Oh, our guest left. Oh. I think we are probably live, so I'm gonna turn this off and then I'm gonna share the screen that we prepared, okay?
Okay.
Hello, everyone. Yep, some feedback. Hello. Yep, feedback. Hello. All right. Oh no. Need a different charger. 1 second, everyone. My computer is dying. Need a different charger. 1 second, everyone. Computer is dying. Charger. All right, we'll try this again. You might see some people pop in. We invited some members from our community to come just last minute. So they may or may not be able to join us, but thank you to everyone who is here. We wanted to do something a little bit different. We've been doing a lot of really serious topics and wanted to do something a bit more fun and lighthearted. And so we are focusing back in on our orgasm series, which is continuing to publish. It's a pretty long series. We tried to give everyone really high quality information. There are a lot of accompanying worksheets if you haven't checked those out that I would recommend that go through different exercises and things you can do alone or with a partner. But today is a little different. So the talk we have today, we have tailored it for the, male, if you have a male partner, we've tailored it for him, to really teach some of the things that they don't read in Men's Magazine, or like the Reddit blog that they, might be finding out this information. I I joke with my husband, before I became an OBGYN, he would read these things online and they always felt a little, suspect to me. And then now that I'm an OBGYN, it's obvious that I don't know where they're getting their information, but there's a lot of misinformation out there and that can lead to frustration on both partners' parts. Um, all of this is not going to apply to every woman. All women are different, unique. That's one of the take-home messages, but we want to give you some really practical strategies. This is not intended to be stressful at all. We want people to ask questions. If you want to come on with us, we do this on Zoom because we want interactivity, and if people want to be able to come off mute and ask questions, just let us know in the chat and we'll shoot you over the Zoom link to join us. So let's see. I don't typically do these with slides, but let's see how this goes. If it becomes too, dry, then we might skip it next time. Let's see. All righty. Aisha, can you tell me if people are seeing what they're intended to see? Aisha,
I'm just checking.
if
Yeah.
you unmute. Perfect. And then I don't know if am I like really small in the corner, am I really big? If you can let me know if that needs any correction, because I can't see myself.
Yeah, it's good to go. Go ahead.
We're good? Okay, perfect. All right, so today's presentation is called She's Not Faking It, Understanding Female Pleasure. We have a lot of information packed in here. We might not get to everything. We also have some accompanying worksheets. Again, as I stated up front, this is supposed to be fun, lighthearted. However, this is a sensitive topic. If you start to feel uncomfortable at any time, please feel free to leave. Nothing in here is designed to trigger emotions. We work really hard to be as inclusive as possible. However, again, everyone's response is a bit different. And so we want you to listen to your body, listen to your mind, do feels right to you. And even if now is not the right time to engage this material, that doesn't mean tomorrow or next month or next year. Okay, so I think this is interesting. What does science say about female orgasms? Most people define sex as when a man penetrates the vagina and then he has climax at the end, and that is the definition of what most people would say penetrative sex is. We think about men's orgasms as a must, but that's not necessarily, that doesn't have to necessarily be the case. Women less often. I actually think this is probably a little high, but this is what is reported in the literature. There might be some sampling bias. Women with female partners, unsurprisingly, are much more likely to have orgasms. And so what's the difference? Obviously, a woman understands a woman's body. She can follow similar patterns as maybe she prefers. The other important thing, and the other important takeaway is that this can be learned. This isn't a secret. Anyone can learn this. But in our society, we just don't take time to even think about female pleasure, let alone, just sexual health in general. And so we want to start to try to change that. And so by the end of this hour, we want everyone to walk out of here with a better understanding of female sexual response. We want the men to walk out of here armed with information backed by science and with potential recommendations or conversation starters for their female partners if they don't happen to be on this live today, or if they don't know this information, because most women unfortunately don't. So why is this important? This is more than just talking about sex. Sex has real stakes. We see a lot of what's going on in the world around us. And so much of that is directly connected to the relationship dynamics between men and women. You can't uncouple that. Sexual satisfaction is directly proportional to relationship satisfaction. 40% of divorces cite sexual incompatibility. And women with satisfying sex lives report higher overall life satisfaction. And so there are real benefits for women. So regular orgasms reduce stress. They can improve sleep and immune function. They can reduce chronic pain and headaches. And they also support heart health. And then if, again, this is written for the perspective of the male partner, what are benefits for you? So a satisfied partner initiates sex 3 times more often. So if you walk away with nothing else, 3 times more often, your female partner is more likely to initiate sex if you actually focus on her pleasure and the things that she likes. But in addition to just sexual satisfaction, we see higher relationship happiness, less relationship conflict, and increased emotional intimacy. And so the bottom line is this isn't charity. This is an investment in your relationship. And it's an investment that really matters. I'm just going to stop sharing for 1 second. Let's see. I can't see anything. It's like driving me nuts. Okay. Oh no. If I share like this, Aisha, are people still able to see it? Because otherwise I can't, I have no context to what else is happening. I'm just looking at a screen. Can you still see it?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Uh-oh. Okay, perfect. And so why is this happening? There is a significant knowledge gap that both men and women have about female pleasure. And what you don't know is hurting both of you. And so starting with partners know about 62% of what pleases them. Partners know only 26% of what displeases their female partner. And sexual communication correlates directly with orgasm frequency and satisfaction. And so sex is not like it is in the movies. It's not, or not for most people, let's just say that. It's not like it is in the movies, where it's this seamless process that goes perfectly every single time and is never awkward. That expectation is unrealistic. It's also not what it's like in porn. And that's the other big problem, is that the average man sees 1,000 hours of porn before the first sexual experience. And so the concept that he has in his mind about what sex is based on pornography, right? And that, I mean, these women are getting paid to do this. This is their job. That is not the same situation that your partner is in. So having that expectation is just completely unrealistic, and it sets up both parties to be dissatisfied, because in porn women always look satisfied whether or not their partner is focusing on them or not, right? But this is an illusion. In porn, there are sexual acts that always happen in certain sequence. And so men have that expectation, especially young men who might not have had a lot of sexual partners. And young women feel uncomfortable saying anything different, right? And so you have both sides who are not learning this information at home, not learning this information at school, going online to social media and looking at pornography, and both parties come out displeased. So porn focuses on male pleasure. It creates unrealistic expectations. Yeah. You could just interrupt me, Aisha. You don't have to raise your hand.
I think you should go back to the earlier settings because on Substack, it's just your screen now, not you.
Oh, weird. Okay. Okay, what do you see now? Oh, I see what you're saying. Ah, I see. You don't see me like
Wait, what do you
me
see
as
now?
the person. Okay. I think it's probably because I didn't do it correctly. Let's see.
See now,
Yes,
person.
I
Okay.
see. I see you
I
now.
think it's probably because I didn't do it correctly. Let's see.
I see you now.
What about now? Can you see me?
1 second, it's loading.
Aisha, can you see me?
Now, can you see me?
You're breaking up. Is it my internet connection? Is that what's bad?
I think yes, but no, we can't see you now. You're not on Substack.
Let me see what we're working with. Boop, boop, boop. I'm back. Are we still actually streaming?
Yes, we are.
Okay. All right. Sorry, everyone. I'm on call now, so I'm not in a place where I have good internet access. So we're gonna be a little on the struggle bus. But we're gonna make it happen. All right. Let's see. Let's try this again. Let's make that bigger, and I'll make myself a little bigger. I might cover up some of the content, but it's okay. I'll be a little floating head. All right. All right, what are we seeing? Anything?
No, nothing.
Anything? What now?
Just give it a couple of seconds. It's loading.
Okay.
Okay, I see you on Zoom, but you're not appearing on Substack. So on Substack, it's just your screen. I don't know why. I see you on Zoom, but it's not on Substack.
Okay. I'm gonna just stop sharing. What we can do is we can give people the link to the slides if they want to. Otherwise, they can just listen along. I'm not sure why it's not working, but we can't figure that out right now. You just are going to have to probably publish it, Aisha, so that it can people outside of our workspace are going to be able to look at it.
Okay.
But I hate using slides. to be very honest. This was a little test to see if it would improve things, but I just find it so hard to be engaging when you're like staring at slides. All right, so okay, so where were we? Porn, yes, the porn problem. I almost fell out my chair when I read that 1,000-hour statistic. It was, I know young men watch a lot of pornography, but it's on a whole nother level than what I even imagined. And when we're creating these unrealistic expectations, it shouldn't be a surprise that people are disappointed. Women are not the focus in pornography. The focus is on male pleasure. I mean, sometimes you don't even, all you see is the woman, right? Her reactions, but not, and the things that she is doing, but not the things that actually bring her joy or happiness. It gives you the perception that you should be getting satisfaction just by sheer nature of having sex with your partner. 1 second, let me, my kids are calling me. 1 second. Sorry about that, everyone. My kids are at home with my husband and they're about to head to bed. And all right, so next part is about the education gap. Aisha, I don't know if you were able to get the slide over to people. Most sex education covers pregnancy prevention and STDs. It doesn't, we never talk about pleasure or, that sex can really deepen intimacy in relationships. The focus is really on all the negative consequences of sex. And we create an environment where people both have like the natural, human desire to have sex, and then have all this cultural programming about how sex is bad. And that's really a recipe for a lot of dysfunction. And it doesn't help anyone. It doesn't help women. It doesn't make people more less promiscuous. All it does is it sets up a situation where young people can be exploited. Older people will exploit the fact that they're so naive, that they don't have an understanding of basic anatomy, that they don't have an understanding of what's safe and not safe a touch. And no one has explicitly even spoken to them about what consent is, right? You need to be taught how to consent. In medicine, we consent patients, right? It's not something that you just are born knowing how to do. It's a process that you learn. And the same thing goes with consent, sexual consent between partners. It is a process that continues even when you're in long-term relationships, because it's not appropriate to just assume continued consent, right? This is something that you have to check in on. Oh, excuse me. But we don't talk about that. And the culture of silence around female sexual needs and desires just perpetuates the trauma, the harm, the shame, all of the negative emotions around sex. Sex positivity is, if you talk openly about sex, it's automatically associated with promiscuity. And so that's one of the reasons that we're coming out and trying to be have a very honest and frank discussion that is centered in science, but also our lived experiences. Because if we as providers can't start to tear down those taboos, then, you know, where does society even start, right? If an OBGYN is uncomfortable talking about sex and literally, you know, the vagina and the female reproductive system, I mean, that's my workplace, right? That's my area of expertise. So if I'm uncomfortable, then of course patients are going to feel uncomfortable. And so we are trying to demonstrate by example that sex can be something that is still sacred, but also you can be honest about, you can talk about openly, and doesn't have to be associated with shame. All right, let's see. Come on, computer. All right, there we go. So let's talk about a little bit about anatomy. So, myth. The clitoris is a small button, small little cute button in the middle of your vagina. In reality, the clitoris is 9 to 11 centimeters in length. It is a large organ. It has over 8,000 nerve endings. And so the external glands of the clitoris, that little button that you see, that's only 10% of the structure. The clitoral shaft extends upward under the hood. There are 2 internal crura, which are called legs, extending 5 to 9 centimeters into the body. I don't know, Aisha, if you can pull up a picture. If we can, I'll show a diagram. If you can't, then we have one in our, I think our first article had some pretty good anatomic diagrams. The vestibular bulbs wrap around the vaginal opening, and it's all connected to internal nerve networks throughout the pelvis. And so why is this important? It's important because you've been focusing on 10% of her most sensitive organ. And you're missing the other 90%. So vaginal orgasms likely involve internal clitoral stimulation. Different women have different clitoral positions and sensitivity. And understanding the full structure explains why technique really matters. And you know what we recommend to people with their partners is that you try different things. You try stimulating different areas. You have honest conversations about you know what feels good. That's the only way that you're gonna learn. Was that the diagram of the clitoris, Aisha?
Yeah, can you see it?
So I was seeing it for a second. I don't know if it's showing up in the live, but
Yeah, I don't know
I
either.
see it. Yeah, perfect. All right, so I think.
Uh-oh. Hello, teacher. Thank you for joining us.
This internet here is killing me. All right, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
Perfect. So what Aisha is showing here is a woman's vagina. You have the mons kind of at the top. You have the lips of the vagina, the labia majora, labia minora, the big lips, the small lips. You have the urethral opening in the middle. That's where pee comes from. You have the vagina right underneath it. We always like to tell women there's 3 major holes that they need to be aware of. There's where you pee from, the urethral orifice, there's a vagina, and then there's a rectum. And the reason that that is important is it's really critical for hygiene. If young girls don't learn how to like wipe correctly, that is a recipe for lots of problems. And then, of course, what we're talking about, let's see if this will actually work. Let's see. This is our clitoris. The rest of the clitoris structure is underneath this tissue. I don't know if we have a better diagram, Aisha, because this is just the external one. This is just the female reproductive system, so no, not this one. We can keep marching down. Not this one. Nope. Yeah, I think it's gonna be down here. Keep going. So these are some MRI images. I think you probably skipped it. So you skipped it looks like there's a video. So I recommend if people are interested in learning more about the structure of the clitoris, watching this video. You can see it kind of looks like a little, I don't know, it reminds me of like a little bat. Here are the wings here. It's a very large organ. That's kind of the take home points. And everyone's is shaped differently. This is the, classic structure, but just like all parts of our body, everyone has, their own unique features. And so what that means is that women are going to experience pleasure from the clitoris in different ways. There might be women who prefer stimulation externally, whereas there are some women who prefer stimulation primarily internally, a combination of both. Women, unlike men, have several different types of orgasms, and many women, once they, really start to understand their bodies, they can often tell the difference between the types of orgasm. So a clitoral orgasm versus like a G-spot orgasm versus a fornix orgasm versus a vaginal orgasm. These all can feel very different because they involve different parts of different bundles of nerves involving the clitoris. But the take home point is it all involves the clitoris. You can't, women don't have orgasms without stimulation of the clitoris in some way, shape, or form. But that can happen with, through a variety of different methods. And so the important thing in terms of the clitoral anatomy that affects the sensation and how different women experience pleasure is the distance between the clitoris and the urethral opening, which varies significantly. Women with a distance less than 2.5 centimeters are more likely to orgasm during penetration. Women who have a clitoris urethral opening that's bigger than 2.5 centimeters in distance typically need direct clitoral stimulation. So this is normal variation. This is not anything related to dysfunction. The clitoral legs vary in length and thickness. The vestibular bulb's position differs. The G-spot sensitivity ranges from completely non-existent. Not every woman has a G-spot that is sensitive to really highly responsive. And vaginal depth and angle variations can affect pretty dramatically what does and does not feel good. And so what works for one woman may not work for another, given that anatomy differs. So optimal positions, techniques are vary. And what makes, some people more, quote, skilled partners is that they are really perceptive of the differences in response that their female partners have to different stimulation. So a lot of what improving your sex life involves is learning to listen and communication, like so many areas in life. Communication is essential because sometimes a woman might, vocalize, very clearly. Yes, no, I like this, I don't like that. But that's often a learned skill that, for example, young women might not have yet. Feeling confident enough to tell someone, no, like, I don't like that at all. Or yes, I prefer this. But she very likely she's going to have some sort of reaction, right? And the more that you can perceive those subtle reactions, the more you're listening to them, the more you're watching for those subtle cues. So quickening of breathing, facial expressions, that's going to be really important to finding what works for you and your partner. So there's no universal technique. There's different things to try, and there's no one way is the right way. Orgasms are all about the brain. Orgasms are a reflex. That's why once you get to the peak, I think of it almost like, I think I was on some call. And to me, like, I think of orgasms almost like, like activation energy that you need, or like potential energy when you're rolling a ball up a hill. You can roll the ball up a hill, sometimes it will fall back down. You roll the ball up a hill again, sometimes it will fall back down. You roll the ball up a hill, and sometimes it gets to the top, and then it falls back down. And then finally, you roll the ball up the hill, and then it goes off the other side. And once it's down that trajectory, it's a self-perpetuating process. So that's what we mean by it's a reflex. So there are 6 distinct stages. You have pre-arousal, that's the baseline stage. This is when dopamine receptors are ready for stimulation. You have the building phase. This involves norepinephrine. Norepinephrine increases sensation intensity. This lasts about 10 to 20 minutes. Orgasms. Women can actually have pretty long orgasms. They can last anywhere from 10 to, I've seen data that says upwards of 60 seconds. Oh, I apologize. I'm like going not in the right order. So we have pre-arousal, and then we have early arousal. That lasts from 5 to 10 minutes. That's when you have a dopamine surge that creates wanting and anticipation. Then you have the building phase, and that lasts for about 10 to 20 minutes, and that phase is driven by norepinephrine. You have pre-orgasm. This is when oxytocin begins releasing, and the analytical brain quiets. And so, if you're ever kind of, having a very pleasurable experience, it's very, common that people just like, it's hard to think, right? It's hard to like think clearly. That's because your analytical brain is starting to quiet, and you are, you're starting to rely just on instinct, and your more primal, like biological processes. Then you have orgasm. This is caused by a massive oxytocin endorphin flood. That's where you get that feeling of euphoria. And then a resolution phase, and that's driven by prolactin, endocannabinoids, and that creates that afterglow feeling. So what are the brain changes that happen during arousal? So your prefrontal cortex, that analytical thinking, goes quiet. Your amygdala, that's your fear, anxiety center, that calms down. Your insula, this is your the part of your brain that is aware of your body, becomes hyperactive. And your default mode network, your self-criticism actually shuts off. And so that's why these experiences can feel so freeing, because a lot of the things that cause us to doubt ourselves, or cause us to overthink things, your brain has your body has a system for shutting that all down. And so, why does this matter for you, the male partner? It's important to understand she needs time for her brain chemistry to shift. It actually takes time for this to happen. You also have to realize that anxiety and stress will block the neurochemical cascade. So even if, you know, cognitively she might want to, or, there might be the right set of scenarios, if she is too stressed and has too much anxiety, it might not actually even be possible for her to achieve the neurochemical state that is necessary to have an orgasm. And so that is why it's critical to be patient with timing. That's why foreplay is important. It's not just like a, nice to have. It's actually important for her brain to get into the right headspace to actually be able to climax. Without foreplay, if the sexual experience is quite brief, she might not ever be able to achieve an orgasm, right? Even women who can have them easily might not be able to achieve that without the sufficient amount of time for her brain to prepare for that process. So question, we have like a little quiz here. The quiz for people that you can put in the chat. What is the average time for women to orgasm when they're with a partner versus when they are by themselves, like through masturbation? And I'll just give some options. Is it 30 minutes? Is it 5 minutes? Is it 10 minutes? Is it 8 minutes? And so I want two numbers is it 14 minutes? I want two numbers. How long it takes her with a partner on average, and then how long by herself. And you guys can just put in the chat. Aisha will like read it off to me if people are able to guess it or look up from our articles. Are people guessing, or am I just like waiting for nothing? Aisha?
No, not yet.
No. Okay. All right. That's fine. So I'll give everyone one more minute. I wonder if we should be able to do polls, right? I think you can do polls on Substack. So the answer is average time when a woman is by herself masturbating is about 8 minutes. The average time for women to orgasm with a partner is 14 minutes. So there's a big difference, right? And there are a lot of reasons why that is the case. What's important to also recognize is that the average time for men to ejaculate, so for them to climax, is 5.4 minutes. And so that's before she could have had an orgasm, even if she was by herself. And almost 3 times, I mean, it's almost, 1/3 the amount of time that it takes her with a partner. And this is on average. For some women, it can take a very long time. And when I'm saying a long time, like over an hour. That doesn't mean it will never happen. But if she's on certain medications, if she has certain underlying conditions, it can actually take quite a long time. And so just being cognizant of that is really important for the male partner to just recognize biologically there is a really big difference. And so the primary reason that there's such a orgasm gap between women who have female partners and women who have male partners is this timing mismatch. So when women are by themselves, it often orgasm is achieved faster because you don't have any performance pressure or anxiety. You ideally have knowledge of your own preferences. You can adjust technique in real time, especially if you're struggling with communicating with your partner and you're not thinking about your partner's experience or impatience. So what 14 minutes actually feels like, it actually includes. So at around 5 to 8 minutes, you have the mental transition and early state of arousal. Between 6 to 10 minutes, it takes for building physical arousal. And then 1 to 3 minutes of the pre-orgasmic intensity, and then orgasm itself can last anywhere from 10 seconds to 60 seconds to maybe a little bit longer. So we have to really reframe our thinking. 14 minutes isn't taking forever. It is normal human physiology. And for partners, please, 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 especially if your partner has a hard time orgasming, I don't know what you have to do, but do not do not let her think that you're getting bored or you're disengaging, because that is very dispiriting, and that will be enough to probably make it completely impossible. Because women will also become really self-conscious and start to doubt themselves or doubt that it's even possible for them. So being mindful, performance isn't just an expectation that we have on men. Women have that expectation of themselves as well. The other big takeaway, I think this was in our last article, or maybe the one coming up, that talks about life stages. Is it this one or the last one, Aisha?
And last one, issue sets.
The last one. I think this is really critical to understand that sexual response is not uniform throughout a person's life or throughout a woman's life. And women, it's important that we understand that sexual response, that we understand our own evolution and how that changes during different parts of our lives, changes with hormonal fluctuation, changes in pregnancy, changes when you're menopausal, and being able to communicate that clearly to your male partner. And so there are going to be, like everything in life, there are seasons. There are going to be ebbs and flows of when there might be a lot more. If you have a long relationship with someone, there might be periods during that relationship where you have more sexual chemistry. There might be periods where you have less sexual chemistry. That doesn't mean that it's not a good relationship. That doesn't mean that you don't love each other or you're not attracted to each other. There's so many things that go into sexual chemistry. It's important to be aware of that, because sometimes partners, both women and their partners can think that this is just what my life is going to be like, and it's always going to be like this. And that's not necessarily the case. There are things you can do to change. If both of you work together, there are things you can do to change your sex life to be more fulfilling for both of you. And so to talk more concretely about the different life stages, first you have adolescence and early 20s. During that period, and I'm speaking for, from the perspective of a woman's body, she's learning her own body, learning her own responses. There's a lot of cultural shame and a lot lack of education that creates barriers. There's performance anxiety and partner inexperience. And often it's easy to get aroused, but less knowledge of sex itself. And so, what does that mean? It often means that women, might have experiences when they're young that are often, potentially traumatizing, um, not not particularly satisfying, awkward. You know, it ranges. In the later 20s to 30s, this is during a woman's, peak reproductive life. So you have pregnancy and then, the postpartum period. Pregnancy dramatically increases blood flow. Your blood volume increases a lot during pregnancy. And that increases blood flow to your pelvis, making you more sensitive. You also have, crazy high levels of estrogen. I had a twin pregnancy for my first pregnancy. I've told people this many times. And I have never, I just have never felt that way in my entire life. It was, just like the amount of estrogen, it was a unique experience. Let's just say that. I wasn't prepared for it, even as an OBGYN. I had I don't know, it makes sense if you think about it, but I didn't know what to expect, right? And no one teaches us this, and we don't learn this at home. We don't learn this from mom. And so it was a complete, pleasant surprise for me and my husband. It was during COVID, so we had a lot of time to spend together. But the parallel or the opposite of that is the postpartum time, where physiologically women are almost like postmenopausal. Um, so they're suffering from a lot of the same issues that a postmenopausal woman has. So a lot of vaginal dryness, decreased libido potentially. You have, you know, especially if a woman is breastfeeding, prolactin from breastfeeding suppresses your sexual hormones. And this makes sense, right? You just had a baby, so your body is going to do things to decrease the likelihood that you're going to have another baby, right? So you can dedicate all of the resources to raising that the baby you just had. And so your body is you know doing this for a reason. But if your partner isn't aware of that, it can sometimes lead to a lot of strain, right? Because you're both sleep deprived. If this is a first time, your first time parent, you probably have never had another individual like in your bedroom, right? And now you have like a baby bassinet right there all the time. And women, it's very natural. You have, hormones that are driving bonding, and that can sometimes lead partners to feel neglected. And so this can be a really challenging time for relationships. And that's something that we don't talk about at all. For a culture that values marriage so much, we do very little to actually support marriage. If we wanted to really help couples navigate these periods of time, this would be something that we would discuss openly, right? Because it these are normal feelings. A lot of couples go through them. it is a huge, huge change to go from just you and your partner to now you have this other little person that does not take no for an answer. And you all just have to get in line. That's just what it's like having a baby. You find strength that you never knew you had. And if you're not mentally prepared for that, if the relationship was struggling going into the pregnancy, this puts additional stress. The other thing that's really important that I would be remiss to not mention is if women are involved in abusive relationships, could be a very dangerous time for her. Again, the male partner, if he has issues with control, he's, you know, there's no bigger loss of control than when you first have a baby. Like your life is just, you know, I try not to plan very much. Even just now, like my kids are going to bed, so they call like there's just so many things that happen that you can't plan for. And that's a part of having young kids. But if you have a partner who um, isn't aware of that, isn't receptive to that, um, you know, that could be a recipe for really bad things. I need to plug in my phone. Excuse me, everyone. I'm on call, so I can't have to keep an eye on it. All right. The 40s to early 50s, the perimenopausal period. This was a little surprising to me. It's actually some of the most rewarding time. If you ask women, older women, it can be some of the most rewarding time for you sexually. Um, Women, often will have an increased, spontaneous desire and interest. You have a lot of hormone fluctuations that create unpredictable responses. You may experience potentially enhanced orgasmic capacity, and relationship dynamics may have shifted to to cause an increase in desire. Your relationship might be more mature. You and your partner might be able to communicate better. Kids might be a little bit older. So all of these kind of combine together to make the perimenopausal period could be a really a pleasant surprise for couples who maybe were struggling with intimacy beforehand when they were kind of in the thick of having young kids, to really get some of that fire back, and to start focusing on on themselves and their relationship again. And then finally, the postmenopausal period. So the big thing about the postmenopausal period, there are some things that are actually really positive. So things like kids, right? Your kids are grown. You understand your body a lot better. Women, often feel empowered in a way they never felt when they were younger to tell their partners, yes, I like this. No, I like that. No, I don't like that. But the big kind of limitation often for sex during the postmenopausal period is the estrogen decline, which affects lubrication and tissue thickness of the vagina. And that effect is very real. It can make sex excruciatingly painful, if not impossible. And so what does this mean practically? You may need more time for arousal. But that doesn't mean capacity is completely gone. You might still have capacity to have a very meaningful sex life, but you just have to do things a little bit differently and communicate with your partner a little bit differently. As I said before, many women report the most satisfying sex in this age group. You're free from pregnancy concerns. You have deeper knowledge of your body. a lot of women are really coming into their own during this time. And so um, for the women, who are in the perimenopausal and postmenopausal, stages of their life, if you're having sexual difficulties, for example, due to hormone fluctuations, due to low estrogen, talk to your doctor. It doesn't have to be like this. And if you can, navigate through some of those challenges, you might actually have like the best sex you've ever had, be the closest to your partner that you've ever been. And this, it might sound superficial, but during like, I don't know about you guys, but when everything is so hectic and crazy in the external world, um, it's really the little things that I just value them a lot more. And be able to have a more intimate, connected experience with your partner, that's valuable. That's the difference between, someone who is able to, still thrive in chaos, and still be able to function, to someone who um, might not have the capacity to do that. And so take these things seriously. Um, they might sound less important than the function of your heart, but all of this stuff is related. It's not separated. Okay, so we're gonna switch gears a little bit, to talk about desire patterns. Um, so we're going to talk about spontaneous versus responsive desire patterns, because that is important, for men to understand, because women often have, their desire patterns are different, than yours are. And understanding that might lead to less hurt feelings, better communication. So there are two normal types of desire. So the first, spontaneous desire, that's more common in men. That's the feeling turned on out of the blue. Like you just saw your partner and now you feel super turned on. Physical arousal precedes mental interest. It often happens potentially without a specific trigger, and creates motivation to seek sexual activity. So that's different than the response pattern that a woman typically displays, which is responsive desire. So arousal emerges after sexual activity begins. Mental willingness comes first. So that's really important, both for men and women, to understand that. I feel like that once I like really was able to like understand that about myself, I was, I could communicate a lot better with my partner. And he was able to understand that this wasn't me, negative feelings that I was having. This was just, I'm doing something else. I'm like doing work. I'm like doing all these other things. I'm like taking care of kids. And so it's not rejection, right? It's just different physiology. And it's important for partners to, to really understand that. And so this requires appropriate context and stimulation. And these patterns are completely normal and healthy. There's nothing wrong with a woman who doesn't feel lots of spontaneous desire. Many women exhibit that pattern. With that said, some women might have, more spontaneous desire. They might just wake up and have, sexual impulses, and that's totally normal as well. And so the take home points is she might rarely initiate sex, but still may enjoy it and want it. When she's not in the mood, that doesn't mean no forever. It doesn't mean she'll never be in the mood. It means not now. Let's communicate about what I should try again. Context really, really matters. If there's another take home point that I can leave our male partners with, is that context matters. This is why if, she comes home and dinner is cooked and the dishes are clean and babies are being put to bed, that just freed up a whole bunch of mental space, right? That can be, then where, desire can now occupy, as opposed to like thinking about the list of 10,000 things that she needs to do before like answering emails at night. Um, and so these are little things that partners can do that make a big difference. Um, Showing your partner that you're thinking about, what are the things that create barriers between intimacy between the two of you. Communicate about that, because if you're able to reduce some of those barriers, then very likely that could lead to a much more rewarding sexual experience. And then I'll say this many times during this session, foreplay isn't preparation, it's desire cultivation. Foreplay is essential. If you want to have sex with your partner, foreplay is how you get her to feel desire. It's not like you. Men and women are just different. And so learning how to do that, learning how to enjoy foreplay, learning the importance, really focusing on it, because women know if you look distracted or if you're just, going through motions, all that is really critical. So what are some practical things that you can do? Because people are busy, both men and women have jobs, you have kids, you have a household that you're running. Scheduling intimacy, that's a real thing. It might not sound as sexy when you are, when you're young, when you're 20, when you're like watching 1,000 hours of pornography. But when you get to be older in your 30s and 40s and 50s, scheduling intimacy sounds perfect, right? Because you know what is expected of you. Because no one wants to hurt their partner. They don't want their partner to feel rejected or sexually frustrated. That doesn't help anyone. And so having that clear communication is, it doesn't have to be like something on a schedule like every Tuesday. It could be as, simple as, communicating as dinner is wrapping up. Like, what kind of headspace are you in? Is it, I've had a terrible day at work, all I want to do is take a bath and go to sleep sort of headspace? Or are there opportunities for, for an intimate moment? Creating romantic context is important. This is why romance is important. It's really sad. Romance is very, I was reading some literature around like Gen Z and the way that men and women are relating to each other in that generation. It's a really like it's actually really pretty terrifying, and a lot of men feel resentful or express resentment in having to create these like romantic scenarios. They feel it's unfair. It puts too much of the expectation on the man. But that again is just reflection of a fundamental misunderstanding of her biology, right? Because it's not about fair or not fair. It's not because we want men to, have to do more work. It's literally how women are built. A lot of them cannot feel desire otherwise. And so if you want a gratifying sex life, because you don't want to have sex with someone who doesn't want to, I mean, you shouldn't. That's a completely different conversation of consent, and real consent, not consent by by default, or because it's the easier option, or your partner doesn't handle the word no well. I mean, real consent. I think we might have some slides on that. Okay, stress. Stress is the pleasure killer. Chronic stress increases cortisol, which suppresses sex hormones. High cortisol blocks dopamine receptors needed for arousal. You literally cannot get aroused. Um, Stress keeps the analytical brain active, preventing the sexual flow state. So this is important. This is a concept that I did not recognize. Is that if you've ever like cleaning up behind me, I'm staying in a hotel, so if you ever have like if you do cognitive work, um, and you have ever gotten to a state where the work that you're doing just feels so effortless, like your mind is you're just completely in sync with the tasks in front of you. Athletes, like great athletes, can get into the state where they're it feels effortless. Their mind and body are completely in sync. They don't have to. There's very little effort in that. That's called a flow state, and there's really good data about flow biology and how you can achieve it, and things that you can do to improve um, your ability to enter in and out of flow, right? It's a big tool that people who are interested in productivity use. The same thing is true about sex. Sex is a flow state. And when we say flow, we mean it doesn't require this, this higher level analytical thinking. It can perpetuate just by it's much more intuitive. It's much more like primal. And so if you are really stressed, that actually prohibits your brain from um, being able to actually achieve a flow state. Just like if you're really stressed, you're not really productive. I have definitely found myself like you're working, you're like doing things, your body's moving, but you're not getting anything done, right? Um, a lot of times it's just best to kind of pack up, call it a day, get some rest, regroup, and come back. The same is true about sex. And so worry about daily life prevents present moment body awareness. So having a good sex life is very similar to meditation. You have to be able to, exit your thinking mind and be able to focus on your body, the present moment, here and now sensations. And that's also why sex has a lot of the benefits that mindfulness practices do, because in many ways it is very similar to a mindfulness practice. So what are some common stressors for women? So obvious things, work pressures, career concerns, childcare. I will say that as a mom of young children, childcare responsibilities and just the mental load of having to think about all, like you have all these little people that you're responsible for. Um, and they need a lot of different things, and having to like carry that in your mind all day long, that is a constant source of stress. Household management and family coordination. Women, unfortunately, still in 2025 carry a disproportionate amount of the household labor. It's one of the reasons that Gen Z women are not interested in marriage, right? They're much less interested than Gen Z men in getting married and having a family. It's because women see getting married and having a family is like just more work. Like she's just getting a second job, right? Um, it's hard for young women to see the benefits of marriage, which is so sad. We have really failed our young people, but that's a conversation for kind of another time. Financial worries, future planning, body image, that's huge. Appearance concerns, especially if your partner is postpartum. Pregnancy changes your body in a lot of different ways. Your body is never the same, and that takes time to get used to. Both the woman has to get used to that, and you as her partner need to get used to that. And the more that you can help her, and still really appreciate the things that are beautiful about her, that's gonna help to reduce her stress load. And so there's an orgasm paradox. So stress prevents orgasm. Orgasm reduces stress. She needs stress release to access pleasure that provides stress release, right? And so it kind of puts you in a little bit of a quagmire. So what are some things that you can do as her partner? So practical support, handling logistics, so she can be present. Emotional safety, so create a judgment-free intimacy space. Mental load sharing, so taking initiative on household and childcare tasks. Timing awareness, choosing low stress times for intimacy. And then patience, allowing time for stress to dissipate before expecting her to be aroused. And so, just like, your hunger changes at different times of the day, your ability to be aroused changes depending on what's going on, when you know, what your structure of your day is, if there are any unexpected, like stressful challenges that you have met, what your partner's doing. I mean, there's so many inputs, and so just because it's no right now doesn't mean it's always going to be no, right? And that's why being able to communicate honestly with your partner about your needs, and for her to communicate about her needs, is important. Maybe she's gonna say it's no, and it's no all night. Like, I don't want you to talk. I don't want to address it again. Or maybe it's just like, I just need some time to myself. I need a little bit of time to decompress. And being able to have those nuanced conversation, and not feel guilty about it, is critical, right? So he understands, he has expectations, like he understands what he should expect, and then you also don't feel pressured or stressed about having to do one more thing that you are not interested in doing. All right. I am going to pause there, see if there are any questions, and then we'll dive a little bit into trauma and sexual response. Aisha, I can't see like if the chat or if people are still here, or interested. So if you can kind of guide me about how much more of this we should dive into.
We have 26 people active and no questions.
Okay. So are people interested in continuing to go? Are you getting something out of this? Anyone out there? I'm going to wait until someone says that they're interested in me proceeding.
Yeah, you should
Looking
continue.
at the rest of our day. Continue? Do people want me to continue? Or do they want to pick this up another day?
And I mean, no one has replied. I've asked.
So just I wonder if people were like really there. Or
I
if
can see
like
them.
you can
I can
no,
see
but
them.
I always wonder, like, if do you stay logged in? Like if you log in for a little bit, do you like stay present?
No, I don't think so. The the
Okay.
the
But
number
it
is
stays
of active viewers. Yeah.
all right. So just so people are aware of what we have left, trauma and sexual response, communication. So some scripts, some things that you can try. We're going to go into foreplay, some, practical tips. We're gonna talk about the clitoris, talk about different positions that might be helpful for stimulating the clitoris in different ways, both vaginally and externally. We're going to dive into sex toys if that is of interest to folks. And then setting the scene, childcare and mental load, affirmations and body image, and then some troubleshooting, red flags, when to seek help. And then at the end, we have a 30-day action plan that you can put into place with your partner. And we have a lot of handouts too. And the only ask that we have is, I want to, if people actually use it and they find it helpful, please give us that feedback, because that is important. That shapes what we do in the future. It can feel very much like you're just talking into the ethos, and knowing that people are getting value from your resources is like, like makes our day. And it really helps us refine things so you actually find them useful, because at the end of the day, that's why we're doing it. And then we have some Q&A, final thoughts, and some resources at the end. So that's kind of what we have still kind of on the list. And I'm just wondering if people are still, like, I'm fine. Again, I'm on call, so like I'm going to be up. But if people want to pick up at another time, that is an option. And then we'll also, if this is popular, we'll also probably do this talk again in different settings. What do you think, Aisha?
I think let's wind
I
up
have no answer.
because
Wind up. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So that sounds good. So thank you everyone for coming. We're here if you have any questions. We'll stick around for just a little bit if people have questions that they want to ask when less people are here. Again, you also have access to the direct Zoom link. So if you want to pop in here, ask us questions. I'll stick around for a little bit. We're here to try to help, to try to provide resources, and to try to make you feel welcome in our community. So, Aisha, do you have any questions?
I am actually like in the background of like assembling this content, so I kind of know everything
Yeah.
around it.
You're like, I'm the one who proofreads your stuff, Teresa. No, I've asked my questions. Yes. Hmm. Maybe we can ask one of the other ladies to, someone else from our team to try to co-host. It's a little challenging when I'm on call because my schedule is chaotic, and that's why we just kind of do it when we can, because I never can predict when I'm gonna have like some free time. But we want to still take the opportunities to interact with you all. So in the last few minutes, I will talk a little bit about about what the Labor Collective is, because I don't think we started with that. So, So you are part of the Labora Collective. If you are a subscriber to one of our 3 newsletters, so Women's Health in her name, and the Blueprint. And so the Labora Collective is what we are calling Diosdada's medical community. And so we are a women's health company. We provide clinical services and provide direct clinical care, but we do it in a way that is different and unique. Our goal is to try to reduce the very poor outcomes that Black women and other women of color face, especially now in today's day. Um, the the statistics are getting quite alarming. And we do that in a variety of different ways. We focus on obstetrical emergencies because that's where we feel like we're going to have the maximum impact if we are able to intervene at that point of extremis. But we don't just focus on the medicine, right? Because we understand that your health is dictated, primarily by all the things outside of the hospital. And that's why we have the Labora Collective, to try to address those other elements. It provides a way for us to interact with the community. It provides a way for us to disseminate information that is high quality, that is medically and scientifically accurate, which in today's day, where the CDC is actively, like to this day, they're like yesterday, I remember the day before, there were a whole series of pages just stripped down, right? They're getting rid of maternal mortality statistics. They're getting rid of violence, domestic violence statistics. They're getting rid of gun violence statistics. They're purging the government websites of this critical information. And so more than ever, it is really, really important for people to have access to information that is really high quality. And we are completely self-funded. This is not an area where VCs are, jumping, to solve. And so your support really, really matters. It matters because, mentally, it's nice to see that people care, that people are engaging with our material, that people want to promote the health and well-being of mothers, of women. But it also matters because there are practical things that we have to do. We have to pay our staff. We want to be able to reach more people, and that requires resources. We have a team, I would say about it kind of fluctuates between 10 to 15 people, depending on where we are, what the particular needs are, who work across a lot of different dimensions to bring you everything that you're seeing here today. And this is just kind of the tip of the iceberg. The organization, we do a lot more. And to learn about that, subscribe to the Blueprint. That's where we are going to talk about what we're building, how we're building it, how we're being intentional about it. More than ever, if you want to see something in this world that is different, that is unique, that's actually helping people and solving problems, you have to support it. That is what I have learned. There's no one coming to rescue us. There aren't government grants that are gonna help save Black women's lives. Like, the government doesn't care. And so it's up to us. And that's what kind of keeps me motivated. It keeps me going. And I hope that some of you can join us in our mission. We're also doing some fun things. I do a lot of creative writing. That's kind of my source of my stress relief. And so we have we're trying to understand if fiction writing is a good tool to use to, to educate people about medicine and their health. And so look out for some of those articles and some of those stories. We have a five season series focused around reproductive justice and the reproductive rights crisis that's happening in the US. We explore it through a fictionalized lens, and I know I'm kind of biased as one of the authors, but it really helps provide clarity on a lot of the details that are hard to communicate in, you know, uh, that are hard to communicate just like in a lecture or in a social post. Um, because these issues are complex, right? It requires storytelling. It requires you to understand a character's like specific, life, where they are in their life, their specific challenges that they're facing. Because like real people, life is complex. And so we try to create complex stories that capture that. Um, and so we really want to get your feedback on that so we can understand, is this a good use of our resources, right? Because it's um, writing good fiction takes a lot of energy, takes a lot of time, and we are only want to continue to do it if people actually find it helpful. And so I know I might seem like a pain, but getting your feedback is so critical. We really, really, really want to hear from you. That's why I'm here at 10:30 at night. Aisha is, it's where she lives. It's early in the morning. So we're really, we we are very enthusiastic about being here. Let's just say that, and we want to understand what your needs are and how we can best be of service. So I think I have rambled enough. I've given people opportunities to ask any questions if they might have it or to jump on the Zoom. We are doing sessions like this that are going to be completely internal. And we have sessions that are planned for adults. And then for, teens and young adults with parental consent for those who are minors, where we will be talking about a lot of these elements in a more structured format. We're going to have activities. The goals are slightly different for older adults. It's about communicating with your partner, about learning your own body. For teens and young adults, a lot of it is about safety, consent, um, understanding, biological differences between men and women, understanding what is normal, meaning, what dynamics are healthy for a relationship versus what dynamics might be suggestive of like, an unhealthy, relationship with your partner. Because a lot of young women don't know that, right? They don't know that a, a boyfriend who is, wants to spend all his time with you, that's not love, right? That's actually, that might be control. And so we want to start having these conversations that we know parents sometimes feel uncomfortable having. So we'll do it for you. Because it's so important. I think, I have a very young daughter, so she's way too young for this. But when she is, older, I want her to have this information because I have seen the flip side of what happens when women don't have this information. It is not good. Um, it is not great when someone comes in pregnant at 13, 14, because that happens. And often it's because they're either you know being exploited or they lack a lot of the, fundamental skills to make good decisions. And so these are real challenges that young people face. And we believe that it's important to really tackle these things head on. And that shame serves nobody, right? That's why I'm trying everything I can do to try to be as upfront and honest and to show by example how you can talk about sex, and you can do it in a respectful way, but not feel embarrassed, not feel ashamed. And so hopefully more people will see that example and become more comfortable having this sort of dialogue. All righty, everyone. Well, thank you to whoever is still there. There's supposedly 628 people here. But thank you, everyone. I hope everyone has a great night. We have an issue coming out tomorrow. I think it's issue, correct me if I'm wrong, Aisha, is it issue 7?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. And we're trying to wrap up this series because it is quite long. So we're going to be publishing it every other day until we finish up, because we have a very, something I'm really excited about on, violence against women. It's a deep topic. It's a hard topic, but a really important topic. And I guarantee you will learn something. I learned, as someone who does this work, who thinks about these issues day in, day out, I learned a ton. And it is not awesome, what our women are facing. Just to give some examples, when you're a teen and you're pregnant, you are 7 times more likely to be murdered by your partner. The other important takeaway you will get is that homicide is the #1 cause of death of pregnant women in this country. Homicide. It's more than the next 3 causes combined. So not hypertension, not hemorrhage, not infection, violence from their partners. And the reason that probably is, might be new information to you, is because we never collected the data until recently. And it is, I can almost bet we will not collect the data into the future. And so we have this snapshot that's completely horrifying, that tells us we have a lot of women in our communities that are struggling. So look out for these women. Keep your eyes open. They are there. You learn to hide trauma well. You learn to hide abuse because you have to function. But if you are paying attention, you can learn to see the signs and provide support to women, because that might be the difference between whether she lives or whether her partner kills her. So with that said, again, thank you, everyone. I am excited to continue to get to know all of you, and please feel free to send us a message privately about things that you like or don't like. Again, that feedback is really, really, really important, and it helps us shape our content. So thank you. Bye, everyone.